Good evening. We are in the second week of the month of Elul. We are in the learning Pashas Kiseitze, when you go out to a war. And we're going to learn a Sikha of the Lubavitch Rebbe. It's Hasidus. I think it's appropriate to start with the mission statement as we start learning, because we've been learning for a long time, and sometimes we need to refresh why we are learning and what is the purpose. So what's the mission statement? Learning of Hasidus brings humility to a person, brings us closer to Hashem, to God. Learning of Hasidus make us better people. Better people means intellectually better, because we comprehend, we learn something new which we did not know before. And in addition, it affects our character, our emotions, our behavior, and our interaction with the world. Specifically, this class started for physicians, and we were learning as doctors and how we can be better doctors. And the Rebbe said that the more you learn, the more you are humble before God, the more you realize that God is the creator and God is the healer, the more successful will be your medical treatments. Obviously, it's going without saying that if we are regular people, we also have our own diseases, we have our own challenges. So the more we are nullified to God, the more he's able to influence to us his good. We don't block the good. Sometimes we can block the good, but we should not block the good. So we tend to accept it. So this is the mission statement, is to become better people and to receive God's blessing into the world, into our personal life, as well as extend God's blessing to our environment. That's the mission statement. Personally, I'm becoming more involved and spending energy, time, and money in teaching those in memory of my father, Alav Shalom Michael ben Emmanuel Halevi. Neshama should have aliyah and have comfort from us learning, and for me being a doctor, doing the right things. So let's learn the chumash of this week. The pasuk says, "Lo tachshor bashor ubechamor yachdav." You should not plow with an ox and a donkey together. Okay, and from here we learn a lot of lessons. And just as an introduction, that when we learn the Torah and we see a pasuk, and this pasuk was written and given to us by Hashem, even though the pasuk tells us specifically what it means, okay, it's the literal meaning of the translation of the pasuk is what it is, but people regard it as holy, and therefore they have a lot of learning. One second, let me mute him. Okay, so the pasuk says, "Do not plow with an ox and a donkey." Okay, and now I'll give you a few examples of a few commentaries that are trying to understand this verse, and what can we learn from those great people who are trying to understand it. Apparently, what it means is that if you have an ox, which is a strong animal, physically strong, and a donkey, which is less strong animal, do not plow the field together, because it will not be an equal share between the two animals. In addition, it means that if you're going to plow with them together, they're going to live together, and they're going to cohabitate and be together in the same barn, and it may even have children together. Okay, so we are learning about kil'aim. You shouldn't plow with two different animals. We shouldn't put seeds which has different kind of seeds of different plants together, and we shouldn't mix animals together and breed them so they will have different offsprings, like a donkey and a horse will have a mule. So there are different ways we can understand and interpret this psukim. Now, in this specific sikha, the Rebbe brings the Rambam and the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher. And they are coming to explain about what is the Mishnah learning about this pasuk. The Mishnah says like this: the reason that you should not plow with an ox and a donkey is because an ox is a kosher animal and a donkey is a non-kosher animal. So therefore, some Mefarshim says the reason is you should not mix kosher and non-kosher. Okay, that's one explanation. The second explanation is that it's not just talking about these two specific animals, it talks about any animals. Do not mix any animals at all when you plow the field, in order to have some sort of inequality between them. Now, when we talk about plowing the field, there is different reasons why Chachamim learned that we shouldn't plow the field with different animals. Because if you're gonna plow the field with different animals, you will put them in the same barn. You are going to be tempted to cohabitate them and breed them, or the animals have different characters, and therefore their behavior in the barn will be different, and one will be afraid of the other, or one will eat the food of the other. So you are making it tsar ba'alei chaim. You are making it suffering for the animals. Okay, animal suffering, we shouldn't do that. There are several different explanations about this, and the Rebbe brings the different explanation, trying to explain the details of them, and trying to explain why are the people who are saying it is different, what do they mean by that? Now, so I'm going to just talk about 2 points from that, because otherwise it can be a very long discussion. So the machloket, the differences between them is breeding and plowing are connected, or each one is a separate law. Okay. The Rambam says each one is a separate law. There is a law that we should not breed two separate animals, because then the offsprings are going to be a new animal, and then God does not want us to use those kind of animal. So that is an essential difference. There is a difference of just plowing the field, that God does not want us to mix pure and impure animals, tahor and tameh, an ox which is pure and a donkey which is impure. Or it can be because of their characteristics, that a shor has the character of gvura, of strength, and a chamor has the strength of kindness, so they are different. But plowing together is a very external. Nothing happens with it. Maybe the animal will suffer for a few minutes or for a few hours that it's plowing together, but it doesn't really affect the world. It just makes a little bit of uncomfortableness to the animal for that time that it's plowing together. But when you breed two animals together, that has, in a way, a detrimental effect on the offspring of those two animals, because it's going to be a new breed, a new species.
Also, they would be sterile.
You mean the offspring? Correct. The offspring can be sterile, not always, but it can be sterile. But the question is also, what is the human intervention? Okay, are we allowed to intervene and mix species together? Okay, are we allowed to take a donkey and a horse and mix them together, so we're going to make mules? Are we allowed to plow? Are we allowed to make seed of an orange tree and a estrog? Because the orange tree is very strong and the estrog is weak. So you take two different kinds of plant life and you breed them together, and you have an offspring which is different. It's going to be an estrog, but the tree will be different. The stem will be different. So is it something upon us that we are not allowed to do it? Or is it something upon the animal that they should not be together? Okay, it's a big difference. Is it on us or it's on the animal? For example, tefillin. Tefillin, a person has to put tefillin. It's on the gavra. A person has to put on tefillin. If you have tefillin, it's on the table for years. There is no mitzvah in that. There is no mitzvah to have tefillin in your house, and the tefillin itself doesn't have any mitzvah to be existed. Okay, that's a gavra. There is a person has to do something. Okay, now in halacha we have the body of the halacha, what's allowed and what's not allowed, and then there is the spiritual counterpart of it. What is the spirituality of this idea? Okay, so in Hasidus it explained about the spirituality. The spirituality of plowing with a ox and a donkey is that the donkey is klipa, is impure, and the ox is pure. And here, when you plow them together, the impurity absorb something from purity. Okay, impurity, the tuma is klipa, is getting something from kedusha, from holiness. Okay, that is spirituality. So are we allowing ourselves to let something which is unholy benefit from something which is holy? Because really there should be a boundary, there should be a separation. There can be a different reason in spirituality, because an ox represents gevura, strength, and chamor represents kindness, and you don't want to mix them together. So the Rambam comes and tells us the reason, a spiritual difference between plowing the field is because of the purity of the ox, which will be taken away, removed, and will be given over into the unholy, into the donkey. There should be a separation. We need to separate holiness from non-holy. Okay? Now, the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, says differently. The spirituality of it is different. Breeding it, even if it's pure with pure, even if you take an ox and a cow, one is strong, one is less strong, or you take impure with impure, even those you should not be mixing, because it's mixing the character of them. Okay, they have opposite characters. You don't want to mix opposite characters. Now, this is when you do your regular mundane things. Okay, so here we give an example of things that we should not breed together, but we should create boundaries between them. Why? Because it's mundane, it's chol. But then we have, on the other hand, we have kedusha, we have holiness, we have mitzvahs. So we know that shatnez, wool and linen, should not be mixed in our clothing. However, when it comes to clothing of the Kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash, it had to be done from shatnez. It had to be done, even though it's not allowed for a regular person to be wearing it, but in the Mikdash, the Kohanim had to wear shatnez. Their clothes was for shatnez, and that was permitted. Now, it wasn't just permitted because Hashem gave like an exception. It says that the garments of the Kohanim was lechavod u'letiferet. It gave them honor, it gave them pride, and it gave them beauty. Why? Because you can have the combination of wool and linen, which will bring beauty. Okay, something that we don't do today, but in the olden days, a brother and sister used to marry each other, and they had very beautiful and good children. Okay, those were done by the Avos. Those were done by people who are able to appreciate the marriage of brother and sister. But the general world is unable to appreciate that. the general world will use it for bad things, and therefore it's not allowed. So from this week's parsha, the lesson the Rebbe is teaching us that there are things that we are allowed to do if it is a mitzvah, and things that we are not allowed to do if it's not a mitzvah. And also it's teaching us about the boundaries which exist in the world. Now, boundaries doesn't mean restrictions. It means definitions and creation of something good. For example, within Judaism, we have a Kohen, a Levi, and an Israel. This is not written in this Sikha. I'm adding it because I think it's very related to us as physicians, as people, because we see a lot of things in the world. And sometimes we try to find the equality among them instead of defining the boundaries, defining the differences, and therefore treating it as such. So Kohanim, Levim, and Israel are normal differences that we have among Jewish people. And it is acceptable. We don't say, oh, all Jews are alike. Yes, we are all alike. On Yom Kippur, we are all alike, but still we have different people with different tasks, with different missions. The Kohanim have a special mission in the Mikdash. The Levim are their assistants. If a Levi will do something of the Kohen, he can be liable to death. If an Israel will do something which is something of the Kohen, he can be liable for death, chas v'shalom. So what does it mean? God created boundaries in order to create peace in the world, to bring peace into the world. Peace is coming by the creation of the differentiation among us. Okay, and that's why it says that the Torah is coming to make peace in the world. When we follow the Torah and we follow the differences that Torah is telling us to make the differences, that brings peace into the world. The minute we think that if we are going to shave off the differences or cover the differences and say, oh, we're all equal, the Rebbe spoke about it when it comes to the land of Israel, when it comes to Shabbos, when it comes to intermarriage, we're not allowed to intermarriage. Okay, those things, when we speak about differences, which is just mundane, or because you, God forbid, want to humiliate somebody, that's a whole different issue that you shouldn't do. But when you are defining what is our difference, what is my mission in the world versus somebody else's mission in the world, when we do that according to Torah, it brings peace into the world. And that is what this parsha coming to teach us, that when we have boundaries, and we define the boundaries, and we exercise the boundaries according to Torah, it brings peace and tranquility into the world. Okay, I'm going to say a bracha, and if anybody has a questions or a comment, then please say so. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam kol yeh b'dvaro. Okay, so I chose to show two videos. One is a physician, a doctor that was the Lubavitcher Rebbe's doctor when the Rebbe took ill in the year 1978. I think we had seen him before, but this specific video clip that he says is something that I didn't show before. And he speaks about his in a way challenges working with the Rebbe. It will be very beautiful. And then another video that will speak about boundaries. Okay, so let me just share the screen. Give me a second. Okay. If you have problem hearing or seeing it, let me know. Okay. 1 second.
On the night of Shmini Atzeres, 1977, the Rebbe suffered a heart attack during the Hakafos celebration. Dr. Ira Weiss was a member of the medical team that treated the Rebbe at 770 over the next month and a half. Subsequently, he became the Rebbe's cardiologist.
When that came around, the test Kislev, he said people are really wondering why I'm not coming out for Farbrengen. Might this not encourage their worry that I'm not doing well? I decided at test Kislev it was time for him to be able to go down to Farbrengen, and we of course had his telemonitoring on. He had his kapote. He walked in, had a very receptive, packed house receiving him at the stage, and I was down among the Hasidim at one of the benches, packed like a sardine, like everyone else was. Only my sardine packing was that I was bending over as if I was deep in study with my gray hat pointing downward and my looking at the monitor at my feet. No one could see, because with people packed like that, no one knew there was a monitor on the floor. And it was battery operated, so there was no wiring. And I may mention as a sidelight that the monitoring done was far sophisticated than the monitoring available at the time. If you were in a hospital at the time, you'd be hardwired to a console. The privacy would be zero, and the dignity would be zero. We instead contacted the National Aeronautic and Space Administration on New Jersey Turnpike, near the New Jersey Turnpike. And we got from them the latest in telemonitoring used for the space program. And although you might see telemonitors all the time in the hospital and someone sitting around in their lounge chair while they're being telemonitored, that was unheard of in those days. So we were busy seeing the Rebbe on monitor, and he gets up and gives his first sikha. And for the first time in this whole episode of the heart attack, he starts having really bad arrhythmia. Ventricular premature beats, way too frequent for safety and comfort. Some of them occurring in chains and couplets and triplets, the things you don't like to see, because they are preliminary to a breakdown altogether into a total chaotic rhythm. And I'm with Larry Resnick, who's sitting with me, and we both are sweating. And we both are aware of this without being able to tell anyone what we're doing, what we're worrying about. And when someone asks, "How are you doing, doctor? Congratulations," and we always give a big smile, like an actor on a stage. But at the same time, I was trying to think, what's practical to do here? Should I go up and stop the Farbrengen and take the Rebbe off the stage and explain to him that this is not safe, and perhaps derail the rest of his productive benefit to the community by making people panic that he's just not going to be strong enough ever to talk to again? I said that really couldn't be the right solution. I held my breath and waited for the end of the sikha. It was a nice long one too, so it got me nice and worried, and Dr. Resnick was no better off than I was. But when the sikha ended, the arrhythmia suddenly magically stopped. I said, "Oh, thank God we're out of the woods." And after a few l'chayims and a few nigunim, he was back on the stage again with another sikha, and the exact same thing happened. We didn't even know what to do. Luckily, after 2 cycles like this, or maybe 3, he then went into a discourse called the Maimer, which had a whole different tone to it. I could see that there was a different hush to the crowd. The nigunim that introduced the Maimer was at a level of a not only a soothing but a deep effect on one's mind. And in fact, that's the purpose of the type of nigun sung before a Maimer, is to put the mind into the frame of being receptive to the deep thoughts of a Maimer. And when the Rebbe gave the Maimer, it came off flawlessly. He had a nice, simple, regular rhythm, the kind that we thought we were going to have the whole Farbrengen. And then the Farbrengen ended a little early because the Rebbe recognized he didn't want to overstep his boundaries. And when I went up to the room, I told the Rebbe what had happened. I said, "Rebbe, I have to ask your mechila immediately, or your forgiveness immediately, for having put you into danger by my misjudgment, allowing you to stay in danger when the danger did arise." And the Rebbe was very happy. He gave me a good smile. So I think I got the mechila. And he said, with his own facial expression, that with the way he gestured, that this is the right thing to have done.
Der Linie von Giula ist der Abzeichen Loschen Akedisch, als wird ausgelesen, wo das Gufe beweist, als sie da eine Sache, was gefühlt sich schon Leben käme. Und wir dafür es lesen, und die Piula lest es und kehrt rum käme, wo dämmelt sie, wie sie darf zu sein, Heper Hagolus, und in der Ruf Gufe ist auch jeder Inyan in Bloschen Akedisch bediuk, Allahas Kame vekame de Shemis Bloschen Akedisch. In der Hepech von Giula hat sich hechet annommen in Loschen Akedisch, wo das Gelo was Gele unterstreicht, als Sache verwogelt geworden, weggenommen geworden von dem Ort, von welchem sie gehört, und gefindt sich bemocken, Schelei, was nicht ihr Ort,
Ami, it's Jay.
und der Nomen
Yes.
allein unterstreicht
The subtitles are in Hebrew. I don't know if there's any way to.
ihn, was
Sorry,
besteht
sorry. Yeah. Hmm.
Better. Thank you.
Will I start?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Hasidism says the bridge to redemption is shorter than you think.
der Linie von Geula ist der Abzeichen Loschen Akedisch, als wird ausgelesen, wo das Gufe beweist, als sie da eine Sache, was gefindt sich schon Leben käme. Und wir dafür es lesen, und die Piula lest es und kehrt lim käme, wo dämmelt sie, wie sie darf zu sein, Heper Hagolus, und in der Ruf Gufe ist auch jeder Inyan in Bloschen Akedisch bediuk, Allahas kame ve kame de Shemis Bloschen Akedisch. In der Hepech von Geula hat sich hechet an Nomen in Bloschen Akedisch, wo das Gelo, was Gelo unterstreicht, als Sache verwogelt geworden, weggenommen geworden von dem Ort, von welchem sie gehört. Und gefindt sich bemocken, Schelei, was nicht ihr Ort, und der Nomen allein unterstreicht, in was besteht Geula, durch den Ruf, am Enem dem Maimid und Matze von Gelo, und mich stellt da rein am Nalef, inne wenig, und dämmelt wird der Inne von Gelo, wird das a Inne shel Geula. Tatscht auf die Gemorre, was ist der Linie von Alef, als Alef beweist auf alufische Leila. Der Ätze Minien von Echot, von der und erste Sach, wo das ist der Linie von Alef, bin Alef beis, ist das der erste Os, als sechet wäre der Motzu Irishin lechol ha-Nimtzoyim, und wäre der Haschole, und die Onhebs von allen Unionen, Punkt wie der Aleph, wie das Schole, von dem ganzen Aleph-Beis, von welchen sie stellen sich zusammen, die alle Schemes und jeder Schem, ich beschaß mir neben den Nebesten, und mich stellte mal rein in Golus, in Gela, a viele noch vor der Zeit, wenn steht, Betrilas Hateva, noch ins Mann von Gela, aber sie wird anos beemza Hateva, und das wird anos begott,
Ami, it's Shay.
Did this freeze up for you as well?
Yes.
Yeah, mine too. I had to log out and go back in.
Ah, okay. Okay.
I don't know what's going on here.